sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Anadialogue, the dialogue on analog music reproduction. In this video, we're going to take a look at some good music. Oh yes. We're going to take a look at the best famous and less famous albums of 1970, a precise year. The genre, obviously rock. Let's get to it. Okay, so we're going to take a look at 11 fantastic albums, which I highly recommend, all coming from a precise year, 1970. It's an important year because, as you can imagine, it's the end of the 60s, where a lot of things were going on, especially in Europe, in the UK, but also in the US, and people were starting to gain more control of their lives, more independence. And this was coming out especially during the last years of the 60s, but also in the 70s. And especially, I would say, highly, this was coming out especially in music. Music was paramount for expressing themselves, for showing to everyone what kind of trend, what kind of lifestyle you were following. And a lot of bands found themselves all of a sudden doing new things, experimenting. So we pass from that, we could say the beginning of what is rock in the 1960s with the full affirmation of what is rock. Not rock and roll, guys, rock. Okay, let's start off actually with an album which isn't that much rock, but it fully embraces what I've just said about music and stuff. What am I talking? I'm talking about Abraxas, one of the best albums of Carlos Santana. Here you can find a lot of classics. This is a Mophie release based on the original master recordings. I'm going to put all these albums now here for just a few seconds. I'm sorry about that, because due to copyright issues, we can't put it for too long. But you can use Spotify, you can use YouTube, you can even use all these digital medias and streaming to find out better if you do not know these. I bet most of you do know these. But maybe some people which are born in the 90s or in the 2000s don't know this yet. Try them, guys, because the roots of true rock, of true, we could say even popular music, blues, jazz, are coming from our past century, and this is a big piece, a big slice of that, okay? Okay, so let's start to listen to this little guy here. I'll just put the first track, and let's see what comes out. I'm not going to be able to prepare the stylus, blah, 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 so I'm just going to do needle drops directly. Beautiful gatefold. Okay, I'll just jump to one more famous track. Black Magic Woman. Let's go ahead. Our second choice is much less known. It's called Sacrifice by Black Widow. I don't know if you ever heard this. This is difficult to find on vinyl. Actually, it was reissued, this earmark, Get Back, from a label that is based nearby Florence, which was reissuing all these albums of this period of the 1970s. All these rare productions. So let's hear it. Jim Gannon, lead guitar, vibe, Spanish guitar. Zoot Taylor, organ, piano. Kip Travers, vocalist. Clive Jones, flute, sax, clarinet. Bob Bond, bass guitar, Clive Box, bass guitar, Clive Box, drums and percussion. A very particular gatefold here. It's a special kind of rock. It's a little bit prog, a little bit jazz, classic rock. It depends. UK album. Okay, let's proceed. One of my favorites. Perhaps this is a different kind of album. Maybe a lot of people know more the artist than the album itself. Buddy Miles, Them Changes. Now he's, as you can see clearly, he's a great drum player. He used to play with Santana, also especially with Jimi Hendrix, and he did a lot of great albums during the 70s. And this is something special, I think. It's a fantastic production. A lot of soul, a lot of funk, and a lot of rock. Let's hear it. A lot of brass. So, let's go ahead. Ooh, we have a classic here. I had to put some classic, guys. It's important. I decided to choose only a precise year, so that's the main topic of this video. Okay. Morrison Hotel, The Doors. This is one of the most famous albums, absolutely. And this is probably what brought to fame The Doors. There's a lot of fantastic tracks here, very famous tracks. Waiting for the Sun, Roadhouse Blues, You Make Me Real, Blue Sunday. It's fantastic. And interesting fact is Hard Rock Cafe comes from this album, because side A actually is called Hard Rock Cafe. That was supposed to be the title, actually. While side B, in fact, is called Morrison Hotel. So just a little curiosity there. Now, let's put a track. How about Roadhouse Blues? Because the Doors did put a little bit of blues like the Rolling Stones in their rock. And a little bit of country.
Yeah.
funny how we have maybe a kind of deformed vision of Jim Morrison. Who was Jim Morrison? He was a poet. I mean, he also actually released an album with his poems. He was a great book eater. He went through books, hundreds of books. He read all the time. He was very intelligent. And another strange fact regarding that just coming to my mind is that I've seen his tomb, his grave, which is in the Père Lachaise cemetery in Paris, in France, because that's where he died, unfortunately. And he's still there. His body's still there. Very simple grave, very humble. Like I would say he was in the end. Okay, so let's proceed. I'm going a little back and forth. As you can see, these are all UK and US productions. I mean, rock is mainly that, but there are also other countries and other productions. Maybe we'll take a look at that in other videos. Okay, so now let's come to one of the ugliest covers, I must say, but one of the most important records of American rock history. Cosmo's Factory, Creedence Clearwater Revival. Oh, yes, baby. This is one of the most famous, I would say maybe, surely one of their most famous albums of Creedence, CCR, but also of American rock. There's so many here. I mean, Looking Out My Back Door, Run Through the Jungle, Up Around the Bend, Who Will Stop the Rain. I mean, this album, guys. If you don't know CCR, don't get a best of, please. Even though the first best of, the old one, was fantastic, try starting from this album if you don't know them. They're amazing. Okay, I want to try to put this time, instead of the first track, one of the most coolest tracks of all time, I think, at least. If you haven't seen The Great Lebowski, that's a movie to watch for. Great soundtrack, obviously based on CCR. John Fogerty, the genius. Analog Productions, limited edition. Okay, I gotta put even the beginning of the one we just heard before.
Just got home from Illinois, locked the front door, oh boy. Got to sit down, take a rest on the porch. Imagination sets in, pretty soon I'm singing. Looking out my back door.
Okay, let's proceed. One of my favorite albums of all time. I mean, if I have to bring 10 albums on the famous Island in the Ocean, I think I'm going to put this among them. Black Sabbath, Paranoid. Oh boy. The amount of sounds, of the birth of... Yeah, there's a little bit of dust, actually. Because I really listened to this a lot now, and maybe I got too used to it, so sometimes you need to leave down a record to appreciate it again after some time. So it's incredible the amount of new experiments, new kinds of music, new kinds of sounds, how rock could be already in 1970 considered heavy rock. This is practically among the few albums considered as the mother of hard rock and then heavy metal. I mean, we all know the leader of this group, Ozzy Osbourne, which obviously he became a huge star of hard rock and heavy metal. But the first and the second, this is the second album of Black Sabbath, and also for example, Master of Reality #4. They're amazing. I mean, they're fantastic. If you like nice riffs, true rock, this is the way to go. Ugly. Good music though.
Gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields of bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh Lord, yeah.
Oh yes, great drums, great guitar. Okay, so let's proceed. Now, another one of my favorite albums. This is a little more country oriented, we could say, but there's plenty of rock also inside. Grateful Dead, Workingman's Dead. Ooh, baby. This is absolutely my favorite album of all the ones they made. Actually, it's hard to find a good sounding album. And I have some hard time finding a good LP, actually. The HD/CD version is pretty good. I must admit that digital sometimes is really good. So, as I said, we got a pinch of rock, a pinch of country, a fantastic album. I mean, it's timeless. It does start out a little too much country maybe for some of you guys, but afterwards it becomes more rock-ish. So, our next album is a special album. It's a British album. Not too famous, I must say, but it's an excellent album. It's the first album of Small Faces, which then will be called Faces. And this is the first album entitled First Step, where you have a very young Rod Stewart. Rod Stewart practically is born in this album here with this group. And also good old Ron Wood, which also, there's also Ronnie Lane, but I wanted to mention Ron Wood, which obviously we all know from Rolling Stones. Here he is. And here is Rod Stewart. And this is a fantastic album. I wouldn't classify it as very harsh hard rock, but it's good rock, again with some southern influences, but also a touch of prog in some passages. It's very undefined, we could say, but certainly rock. I don't want this video to be too long, so let's go ahead. Good stuff, guys. UK album, obviously. And now, let's proceed to one of the most important bands probably in this group, and the most famous, I would say. But I had to include also Led Zeppelin 3, which actually is one of my favorite albums of Led Zeppelin. Maybe my favorite. I don't know. It depends. It goes from time to time. But this is certainly a fantastic album. All the albums I'm showing you are limited editions, special editions, AAA, almost all, not all of them. But so you're not listening to crap, just to make that clear. Okay, so the cool thing of this album, which I find kind of incredible, and in fact I'm going to put side 2, is that side 2 isn't that rock, actually. No. It really has a lot of folk, a lot of I don't know, that almost Jethro Tull turn a little bit, a little medieval, a little folk rock mixed, and especially on side 2, this is very present, and I love the sounds that they created. I mean, side 1 is very rock, hard rock almost, we could say, but this other side is a little more medieval. Mesmerizing, I would say, also. Also rock ballads, we could call them, a few. Somehow. No. They got the label wrong. This is a good starting point if you don't want to go through Led Zeppelin 1 and 2. Certainly this is a little more pleasant and easy listen, I would say. But still, I mean, very, very high quality. Okay, so let's remain in the UK. Let's proceed and hit another album, which it's famous because it is, again, quite heavy. In fact, it's called, by Uriah Heep, very heavy and very humble. And again, I mean, the quality, the guitars, the sound is so ahead in time. I mean, it's almost like the end of the 70s. It's amazing. Because if you think that these albums are published, issued in 1970, that means that most of them, not all of them, were recorded in 1969. So you really see the change of what's happening in that decade and that passage. Very important passage. Very nice gatefold. Okay, you've got an idea. It's not all like that, obviously, but there are a lot of interesting solutions there. And now, let's go to our last record. This is one of my favorite albums of the 1970s, surely of rock in general. John Barleycorn Must Die by Traffic. Freshly done after Blind Faith, another excellent album. I wish I could have put that, but that's 1969. This is 1970. And The Solutions, adopted by good old, what's his name, Steve Winwood, is amazing. I mean, there's so much here. There's pop, there's rock, there's progressive, there's, I would say, jazz, a little bit of everything. Perfectly combined. There's John Barleycorn. Prohibition. Saxophones. We're not in the 80s. That's something new. Okay, guys. With these fantastic notes, I want to say goodbye. Thank you for watching. Please leave your suggestions here below for 1970 albums. Great albums you think are worth mentioning, are worth sharing with the community. Bye, guys. See you soon. Ciao.